All right. Well, good evening, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us for our fifth Community Climate Forum, Plastic Reduction, a Climate Mitigation Strategy. My name is Lisa Ligis, and if you've joined any of our forums so far, this is all going to sound very familiar to you, but Happy New Year. And I will be your host and moderator tonight, and I am a conservation education liaison at the St. Louis Zoo and still the co-chair of the zoo's climate change task force. Before I introduce our presenter, I want to first give, as we always do, an overview of how this webinar will work. First, this webinar is being recorded and will be shared at stlzoo.org/climate change, probably the same place where many of you registered for the webinar. Because this is a webinar and we have so many attendees tonight, we are unable to see or hear you, unfortunately, but our goal tonight is to still engage with you, hear your thoughts, and answer your questions. A few of my colleagues will be assisting me and monitoring the Q&A and the chat. So please put your questions in the Q&A and any thoughts or discussion points in the chat, and that will help us address them in a much more timely fashion. Please remember to be respectful and courteous to our presenter, our panelists, and each other. And please keep your questions and thoughts relevant to the presented topic. If someone is unable to follow these protocols, their comment or question will be removed, and they themselves may be removed entirely from the webinar. Our presenter will also leave as much time as possible at the end of her presentation to address questions and discussion points with our panelists. Now, without further ado, let's begin. Our distinguished presenter tonight is Leslie Gittemeier, the zoo's Buy-to-Bags coordinator. Take it away, Leslie.
Hello, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'm gonna just get my screen shared with you. All right, so tonight's topic, we're going to be talking about plastic reduction and how it's part of the climate mitigation strategy. So first off, I wanted to start by talking about how plastics are tied to climate change. So climate change is the result of heat trapping gases, largely from the extraction of and burning of coal, oil, and gas, acting like a heat trapping blanket around the earth, causing it to warm and our climate to change. To limit warming, we must transition to alternatives for uses of fossil fuels. Typically, when discussing these solutions to climate change, we focus on alternatives to our current forms of transportation, heating and cooling, and maybe even agriculture. But another use of fossil fuels is plastics. And about 99% of all plastics are made of oil and gas. And therefore, one of many ways that we can limit warming includes reducing the use and finding alternatives to plastics. Got a little video from the Center for International Environmental Law to kind of further explain this.
We know plastic harms people, animals, and our environment, but it also poses a more hidden threat. Plastic contributes to climate change, and it may compromise our ability to keep global temperature rise under 1.5 degrees Celsius. Cheap natural gas from fracking in the United States is driving a plastic production boom. By 2030, emissions from every stage of the plastic life cycle will release as much carbon as 295 coal plants every year. Plastic begins as a fossil fuel, whose extraction is energy intensive. Drilling requires fuel and releases methane into the atmosphere. Trucks to transport those fossil fuels burn fuel themselves, and pipelines clear land and leak methane. At massive industrial facilities called cracker plants, oil and gas undergo one of the most energy-intensive industrial processes to start their transformation into plastic. In 2015, global emissions from this process or as much as 45 million cars. 40% of that plastic is manufactured into single-use packaging, which is used once and thrown away. The end of plastic's usable life marks the start of most of its lifespan. Only 9% of plastic has ever been recycled, the best climate option when managing plastic waste. As recycling centers are overloaded worldwide, industry is looking to incineration to manage plastic waste. Of all waste management options, this is the worst for the climate. Even plastic lying inert on our beaches and in landfills release greenhouse gases as it breaks down over the centuries. And new evidence suggests that plastic may be jeopardizing our ocean's life-sustaining ability to trap carbon from the atmosphere. The plastic industry plans to invest over $200 billion in plastic production by 2025. On this path, by 2050, plastic will emit up to 13% of our entire remaining carbon budget, or all the carbon we can emit before global temperature rise surpasses 1.5 degrees. To protect our climate, it's time to break free from plastic. We know plastic harms people.
So how much plastic are we talking about? Currently, the global mass of produced plastic is expected to be greater than the overall mass of all terrestrial and marine animals combined. And as that video mentioned, 40% of all the plastic is used just once. So we have a great way to cut back on plastic just by cutting out the single use if we can. And global plastic production is doubling approximately every 11 years. So more than half of all plastic produced has occurred in the past 15 years. And as you can see in this graphic, people living in North America have the highest waste generation per person. Therefore, we have the greatest opportunity to make an impact. So there is a human cost to fossil fuels. And so fossil fuel air pollution was responsible for more than 8 million people's deaths worldwide in 2018, according to research that came out from Harvard. And researchers estimated that exposure to particulate matter from fossil fuel emissions accounted for 18% of total global deaths in 2018. So a little less than 1 out of every 5. And regions with the highest concentrations of fossil fuel related air pollution, including Eastern North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia, have the highest rates of mortality. We're also beginning to learn about the negative impacts of direct interactions with plastic on human health. Many plastic additives are known to interfere with hormone functioning and are, by definition, endocrine disrupting chemicals, also known as EDCs. The Endocrine Society published a report called Plastics, EDCs, and Health, an Authoritative Guide in December of 2020, discussing how plastics can lead to higher rates of cancers, diabetes, kidney, liver, and thyroid impacts, metabolic disorders, neurological impacts, inflammation, alterations to both male and female reproductive development, and infertility. And research continually is evolving in this arena. There's also an environmental racism component to this. We know that the negative impacts around plastic are not felt equally because of the development of where plastic is produced and also where it ends up. So people living within 3 miles of petrochemical clusters are found to earn about 28% less than the average US household and are 67% more likely to be people of color. There's an area along the Mississippi River between Baton Rouge and New Orleans in the river parishes of Louisiana. It's actually nicknamed Cancer Alley. It contains over 150 petrochemical plants and refineries and accounts for 25% of petrochemical production in the United States. And 46 individuals per 1 million are at risk of developing cancer in that location, compared to the national average of roughly 30 individuals per 1 million. Also, plastic is leaking into the environment. The accidental leakage of plastic packaging into the environment has been estimated to be 32%. And plastics are the largest, most harmful, and most persistent fraction of marine litter, accounting for at least 85% of total marine waste, according to the new UN Environment Program's report called Pollution to Solution. The impact on wildlife. So animals are getting harmed largely from entanglement in plastic and the consumption of plastic. Research came out showing that once the plastic has spent some time in the environment, it can even start to smell like food to animals. They can also just see a plastic bag floating in the water and think that it looks like a jellyfish. There's animals like sea turtles that eat jellyfish for food. So it can be really hard for them to distinguish plastics from their normal diet. So plastics are estimated to kill millions of animals each year, including 100,000 marine mammals and nearly 700 species, including almost half of all surveyed bird and marine mammal species are known to be affected. And the impact on the animals differs depending on the type of plastic and where those animals usually eat in the water column and what type of items that they usually eat. So you can see a little bit in this graphic of which animals are most impacted by which types of plastic. So there's a lot of problems that we have going on, but there's still so much that we can do. I like this quote by oceanographer Sylvia Earle. So it is the worst of times, but it's the best of times because we still have a chance. Really, how much we succeed is up to us and the action that we take together. So I do have a poll question for you guys. If you want to fill it out. So do you take action to prevent plastic pollution? And this is exciting to watch.
All right, we've got 85% of people reporting. I think we'll give it, what, 10 more seconds, Leslie?
Sounds good to me.
All right, ending the poll.
Okay, so we got 60% saying yes, they're doing as much as they can to prevent plastic pollution, which, man, it's really exciting and motivating.
Awesome.
And then we got another 40% saying that they're already taking some action, but they're ready to take some more. So I have some, and even 2% saying that they're not taking action, but they're ready to start. So we're very happy to see that. The rest of this talk, we're actually going to be diving into a lot of solutions and how you can get involved. All right. So first off, on a global scale, we need to kind of rearrange our system in order to set up everyone for success when it comes to reducing waste and material consumption. So one way that has been proposed is to transition to circular economy, where we design products in such a way that they do not produce waste. And I have a little video to share with you on that.
Living systems have been around for a few billion years and will be around for many more. In the living world, there's no landfill. Instead, materials flow. One species' waste is another's food, energy is provided by the sun, things grow, then die, and nutrients return to the soil safely. And it works. Yet as humans, we've adopted a linear approach. We take, we make, and we dispose. A new phone comes out, so we ditch the old one. Our washing machine packs up, so we buy another. Each time we do this, we're eating into a finite supply of resources and often producing toxic waste. It simply can't work long term. So what can? If we accept that the living world's cyclical model works, can we change our way of thinking so that we too operate a circular economy? Let's start with the biological cycle. How can our waste build capital rather than reduce it? By rethinking and redesigning products and components, and the packaging they come in, we can create safe and compostable materials that help grow more stuff. As they say in the movies, no resources have been lost in the making of this material. So what about the washing machines, mobile phones, fridges? We know they don't biodegrade. Here, we're talking about another sort of rethink, a way to cycle valuable metals, polymers, and alloys so they maintain their quality and continue to be useful beyond the shelf life of individual products. What if the goods of today became the resources of tomorrow? It makes commercial sense. Instead of the throw away and replace culture we've become used to, we'd adopt a return and renew one, where products and components are designed to be disassembled and regenerated. One solution may be to rethink the way we view ownership. What if we never actually owned our technologies? We simply licensed them from the manufacturers. Now, let's put these two cycles together. Imagine if we could design products to come back to their makers, their technical materials being reused and their biological parts increasing agricultural value. And imagine that these products are made and transported using renewable energy. Here we have a model that builds prosperity long term. And the good news is, there are already companies out there who are beginning to adopt this way of working. But the circular economy isn't about one manufacturer changing one product. It's about all the interconnecting companies that form our infrastructure and economy coming together. It's about energy. It's about rethinking the operating system itself. We have a fantastic opportunity to open new perspectives and new horizons. Instead of remaining trapped in the frustrations of the present, with creativity and innovation, we really can rethink and redesign our future. Living system.
And some good news about that is there are actually already businesses that have signed on to the Circular Economy Network to be part of this transition to a system where we keep items in the system as long as possible and reduce waste. There's also this concept of extended producer responsibility. So many governments have reviewed available policy options, included that placing the responsibility for the post-consumer phase of certain goods on producers could be a good option. Under EPR, or extended producer responsibility, producers are given a significant responsibility, both financial and or physical, for the treatment and disposal of post-consumer products. And assigning such responsibility could, in principle, provide incentives to prevent waste at the source, promote product design for the environment and recovery, and support the achievement of public recycling and materials management goals. So it's one way to help push the production in the direction of a circular economy. And then, so we're trying to reduce the amount of waste that gets created and maybe even trying to eliminate as many plastics as possible. But there are some things that might be really hard to replace. And then in that case, we can look for alternatives. And the people at Drawdown concluded that an estimate of 90% of our current plastics could actually be derived from plants. So we do have secondary replacement options for those things that we can't easily eliminate. There are currently some limitations on this. So there's bio-based plastics out there, but you need to keep an eye out because some of them have plant material in them, and it's kind of a mix though between plant material and fossil fuel-based plastic. So those still have to go to the landfill, and they'd be really hard to recycle. And then there are compostable plastics that are engineered to be fully decompose or break down in the natural environment in an industrial composting facility. And those are great if you have a commercial composting option where you are. Luckily in St. Louis, we do. We have commercial composting. So if you're at the zoo, you might have actually already seen compostable utensils. And we actually do send those to a commercial composter that actually can break those down. They don't work in home composting just because our home composts don't get hot enough to really break them down. But it is a potential option moving forward. There's also different businesses that are kind of taking action, trying to reduce their waste. So there's currently a Beyond the Bag challenge that I'm aware of, since my focus is on switching to reusable bags. These retailers in this picture are joining together to try to come up with ideas for how to get rid of plastic bags while still having a good experience for their customers. And they took a lot of submissions from people on how they could replace their plastic bags or get rid of them. They have 9 different finalists ideas that they're putting into practice in small ways to test them out and see which ones will actually work and which ones fit best for which company. So it's something to keep an eye out for. There's also different places where there's straight up bans or fees for single-use plastics. We have some in the United States, like these 11 states have either a plastic bag ban or fee. There's also efforts at the national level. So in November of 2021, US EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, announced that it's going to try to have our first national recycling strategy that aims to achieve a 90 or a 50% nationwide recycling rate by 2030, from the 10% right now. And there's also 100 different nations that have expressed support for a plastic treaty. And those involved in preliminary talks are optimistic that one could be approved on a pace that could make a difference. And they're actually going to be talking about this potential for a global plan to tackle plastic pollutions and its harms at the UN Environmental Assembly in February of 2022, this year, so next month. Then we have quite a few local options or opportunities that are existing that you might be able to even tap into and get involved with. So they're under the leadership of the Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. The mayors of the Mississippi River, in partnership with United Nations Environment Program, National Geographic, and the University of Georgia, launched an initiative to combat plastic pollution along the Mississippi River called the Mississippi River's Plastic Pollution Initiative, or MRPPI. We spent 3 weeks last spring in April collecting and documenting litter along the Mississippi River in St. Paul, Minnesota, St. Louis, Missouri, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The St. Louis Zoo was actually a sponsor of this effort, so happy to participate in that. And this is important because it's estimated that up to 40% of plastic pollution entering the Gulf of Mexico and then into the ocean originates from the Mississippi River. So what we're doing matters. And we have another poll question for you. Did you participate in last year's community science project documenting plastic pollution along the Mississippi River? Ooh, we have a few.
Okay, we're at 92% of our folks, so we'll leave it up for 10 more seconds. Three, two, one, and end.
All right. Well, it does look like 3 different people on our call right now actually participated in this community science project, which is really cool. Keep an eye out. I think this is going to be a multi-year project, and they're actually going to be trying to get more cities involved in collecting data too. And this data is going to be used to help guide policy decisions, because they're going to be able to see how much plastic there is, where it's at, what sources it's coming from. So they even had us labeling like the brand that we were collecting. So something to keep an eye out for. We also have the group called 1STL. It's a collaboration to encourage and support greater sustainability across the 8-county St. Louis region. It's a dynamic network of organizations and individuals that share ideas, expertise, and resources to try to reach our regional sustainability goals. You can attend the monthly sustainability labs to learn about different actions that are going on and different topics regarding sustainability. Or if you're really ambitious, you can join one of the working groups. There are 6 working groups in total. There's biodiversity, energy and emissions, food access, materials and recycling, transit-oriented development, and water and green infrastructure. Since we're talking about plastics, that falls under the materials and recycling working groups efforts. And our goal is to reduce the tonnage of waste going to landfills within our watershed by 30% by 2030, as compared to the 2015 baseline. So you can get involved with 1STL if you're interested.
Leslie, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just had a good question about, are there any age limits for these groups?
It might depend on the group. I think the Mississippi River Plastic Pollution Initiative was open to everyone. I'm not sure about 1STL.
Well, Wanda might know. I also shared links to all of the groups as you've been talking about them. So there might be more information in there for you, Grace. If there's one specifically that you are interested in, you can see kind of what their parameters are.
Good question, I think. Another opportunity is the Green Dining Alliance. The Green Dining Alliance certifies restaurants in the area based on their sustainability, and it offers practical, pragmatic strategies to help them lower their environmental impact. So you can support this program by eating at GDA certified businesses, or if you have some money and you can support them further, you can become a member of Earth Day 365 at the Green Dining Alliance ambassador level of $50. And when you do that, you actually get some discounts for going to Green Dining Alliance restaurants. And just a plug here, the St. Louis Zoo, we have 2 different restaurants that are GDA certified, our Lakeside Cafe and Cafe Kudu in the living room. Another way to reduce plastic is to garden. Instead of buying products that have been shipped here, like food items that have been shipped here and might be wrapped in plastic, if you grow your own food, you can also maybe participate in community gardens or CSAs, or go to local farmers markets. And if you're not sure about the opportunities near you, you might be able to check with Seed STL. They have helped start over 250 community gardens in St. Louis. And if you don't have any gardens near you to participate in, you can reach out to them and maybe get one started. They provide infrastructure for new garden projects, yearly expansions, one-on-one staff consultations, and resources for long-term sustainability. There's also the Green Business Challenge. This is a challenge or a program run by the Missouri Botanical Garden that started back in 2010. And they assist companies with integrating sustainable measures into the kinds of daily operations common to every business. Participants identify and voluntarily adopt strategies that improve financial performance and reduce environmental impacts while engaging their employees toward both workplace and community benefits. And they have already had 233 businesses, nonprofits, and municipalities join the challenge. And if you're not working, but maybe still in school, you can look into the Green Schools Quest or Missouri Green Schools. So the Green Schools Quest is an annual project-based challenge for pre-K to 12 schools to devise and implement no or low-cost sustainability projects at the school over a 6-month period of time with the help of a mentor. The schools document their project impact, such as energy savings, waste reduction, or increased biodiversity during the project, and submit their project's process and impact for judging at the end. There's also Missouri Green Schools, which provide the tools and resources for schools to set and track environmental, health, and sustainability education goals. There's also a lot of things that you can do on your own that lots of other people are doing, and by working together on the same things, we can really reduce a lot of waste and plastic pollution. So we tend to recommend the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Reduce stands for both reducing the amount of items that you get, like avoiding those little knickknacks that try to grab your attention when you're checking out, that are just like little plastic things that won't last very long, or they're single use. Can also mean just choosing the options that have the least amount of packaging, going with the bulk thing of goldfish crackers instead of individual serving sizes, stuff like that. There's reuse, which is switching to reusable items. So instead of having a plastic water bottle every single day of the year, have one reusable water bottle that's going to last you for maybe a few years. And then last is recycling, the things that you can't avoid and have already extended their use, and it's time to discard them. See if they can be recycled. Now this depends on where you live, so you do need to check with your local recycling facility and see what items they take. If you live in St. Louis, I recommend checking out STL City Recycles. Now, why recycling is not the first choice on this list? It's quite a few different reasons. One, a lot of items are still not recyclable. And then of the items that can be recycled, a lot of times they can only be recycled like 1 to 3 times, because plastics are made out of long chains of molecules, and as they recycle them, they have to break down those chains and they lose a little bit of their structural integrity. So a lot of items that are used with recycled plastic it's a mixture of recycled plastic with virgin plastic to help keep that structure. And then also items that you recycle aren't necessarily repurposed into the same item. So I'm most versed in this with plastic bags. So there are plastic bag recycling drop-off locations that you can bring your plastic bags to. And locally, there's a company called Trex that takes a lot of those plastic bags and they turn them into patio furniture and decking material. So the plastic bags that you use are going to be at least recycled, but they're going to be replaced by other bags that are made out of virgin plastic. So if you want to reduce the amount of plastic bags there are, it's best to try to switch to reusables and avoid those bags in the first place. And then the fourth complication with recycling is just that new plastics called virgin plastics also tend to be really cheap, and recycling plastic can take quite a bit of money. So sometimes it's just not incentivized for the companies to use the recycled plastic and they'll choose the cheaper virgin plastic. Here's another example of individual action that you can take together and make a big impact. We have our Buy to Bags program at the St. Louis Zoo. It was created by our teen volunteers in 2016. They wanted to focus on plastic pollution and decided to focus on plastic bags in particular because of their impact on wildlife. And we've actually had a big impact by working together. We have over 14,500 pledgers that are individuals and families, and together they're saving between 140 and 419,000 plastic bags from being used each week. So it really does add up when a whole bunch of people are taking action together. And if you'd like to join Buy to Bags and take the pledge and help drive up that number some more, I have the link there and probably being put in the chat too. There's also different business or organizations working on plastic pollution and plastic reduction, like the Break Free from Plastics group, which is a whole lot of different organizations working together. Plastic Pollution Coalition, Beyond Plastics. There's the Ocean Heroes Network, which is really focused on youth-driven solutions and youth working together. And the Ocean Project, which helps fund different projects, including the Buy to Bags project in our first year of being. And another thing where a lot of individuals are taking actions at the same time that it adds up is plastic audits. So I mentioned that a little bit with the Mississippi River Plastic Pollution Initiative, where while people are out collecting plastic, they're actually documenting what they're finding. And it gives us an understanding of where is all the plastic, what type of plastics are there, what brands are they coming from, and locations. So there are some organizations specifically that are long-term trying to use this data. So we have Break Free from Plastic that's doing this initiative, trying to get people to document what they find. And then there's the International Coastal Cleanup. It happens in September of every year, and people around the whole globe will go out on that day and help clean up the coastlines. They also encourage people to clean up along the river and lakes too. So if you're here in St. Louis or nearby, you can also participate in the International Coastal Cleanup and help further our knowledge. And then
Leslie, I'm sorry to interrupt another time. I apologize. I know you're the only reason I'm interrupting is because I know you're going to ask people to interact in the chat, and we've had a lot of questions coming in the chat. So before we have people typing away, I want to get to some of these questions so that they don't get lost. And also for everyone that is with us, if you have any questions from here moving forward, please put them in the Q&A, which is the button down at the bottom, kind of by where your video, where you could, or where you would turn on your video down in the bottom corner. Please use that, and that way we can use our chat for discussion points or adding anything supplementary. So I'm going to scroll up for a bit and get to just a handful of questions, Leslie, that we had come in.
Yeah.
So Mark is often asked, which is better, paper bags or plastic? They understand that this is complicated, but what would you say to plastic or paper?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely try to avoid both by switching to reusable. Now, research on this, there is research on this and there's publications and I've read them. And what they found is that you have to use a paper bag, I think it's either 3 or 7 times to use less resources in the production of that bag. So paper bags take more resources to make. So in that regard, plastic can be a better solution. However, they didn't balance out in the research the impact of those bags if they end up in the environment. So there's not like one that both looks at before resources use and ending up pollution-wise problems.
Gotcha.
Now, I personally would probably lean more towards the paper bag and just trying to use it as many times as possible. But that's also recommended just choosing the option that you already have. So if you already have plastic bags, you can just keep using them potentially. Like you don't even need a reusable bag to bring to the store. You can bring plastic bags to the store and use them too. I actually do that a lot of times with my produce.
Yeah.
Just make sure to clean them between uses.
Right. I grew up in the 80s and before plastic bags were as common as they are now, or numerous as they are now. And my mom would always reuse the paper bags. It was like our reusable, my current reusable bag stash was my mom's paper bags that she would use until they fell apart.
Interesting thing is I think it's the son of the guy who invented plastic bags. That was his father's actual intent when he first created the plastic bags. He's like, this is great. It's a lightweight, durable material that can easily fit in anybody's pocket, and then they can have it on them wherever they go, and then it's a to-go bag.
That makes sense.
It's good for continual use.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to stick to another question that we have. Some of them we were able to answer in the chat for you, Leslie.
Oh, thank you.
We did have a teacher asking for resources, and we've had a few questions where people were wondering if there would be a place where they could get everything in one spot. So I'm wondering, since we're going to make this webinar, the recording available on the website, maybe we could add a list of all of these links and resources with it. Do you think?
Yeah, I can make that. And then also for educators on the Buy to Bags page on our website, I think you guys already shared the link. Maybe you want to share it again, Lisa. We actually have links to different lesson plans and activities that you can have for your students.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. And then in a pandemic, this is a really good question, one I also have actually. Kathy was wondering, in a pandemic, any ways to decrease plastic for your carry-out meals, since we're, for those of us not eating in restaurants right now?
So this is difficult. I can only really tell you what I've personally done is we try to choose only the ones that have the options of like the cardboard takeaway containers or like cardboard boxes. And then other things that I've done is like switched. We used to do Chinese food every Tuesday, and I started just making it from home. I found a recipe and started making my own. I know that's not always an easy option with busy lifestyles, but maybe just look around at the different options out there. Check out those Green Dining Alliance different restaurants. They might already, they don't have styrofoam, and they might already have those cardboard, easy takeaway, less impactful packaging.
Yes. Speaking of container, where can you, so reusable mesh bags for produce. Where are some good spots to get those that are some good quality ones?
So I actually did order mine online. It's a company called Colony Co. And I chose them because they're cotton, and then they also have the weight of the bag on the bag, like on a little tag. So
Nice.
it's really easy for when I'm getting checked out, them to reduce the weight of the bag from my purchase when I buy bulk.
Very nice. Okay, I think we have caught up.
Just another thought with
Yeah.
the uh grocery like fruits and vegetables and things. A lot of times you may not really need a bag. That's just another thought. Like a lot of times I'll, just kind of put it in the basket and weigh it, without a smaller bag. So
And I mentioned, I think earlier too, is I've kept a lot of those bags. So I still have bags from 2018 for like produce bags, the plastic produce bags from before I got my reusable cloth ones. And I just make sure to clean them out and let them dry completely and then put them back in my reusable bag and use them like weekly for my lettuce. I get the loose lettuce. Yeah. So that's another option too.
All right, so we've got a few in the Q&A, but since we've addressed all the questions that are in the chat, I want to let you finish with what you're going to finish, and then we'll hop back onto questions. Thank you, Leslie, again. Sorry to.
No problem. My next slide is actually a question for everyone in attendance. If they know of other solutions for plastic pollution, they'd just be interested in sharing for everyone to see. I try to include a whole bunch of options for people to get involved, but you guys might be doing things that I'm not even aware of that other people could get involved in. So that's kind of opportunity to share. While you guys are sharing your solutions to plastic pollution in the chat too, I have kind of really one main last slide, which is just kind of my guide for taking action. So first off is trying to find your place. This is one piece of advice that I learned by starting at the zoo and working with our teen volunteers. We're trying to help them find their place as well. And some good questions to ask yourself is, what are you good at? What is needed? This could be in your home, in your community, or society at large. And what are you passionate about? And where those three things intersect, that might be the best place for you to allocate your time to try to make a difference. So you might not know a whole lot about plastic pollution, but maybe you're a really great artist. You can find a group and maybe you could help by making graphics that just really engage people and help inform them. Maybe you're just a really social person and you get along really well with people. Maybe that could be your part, is joining in, learning about what's happening, and then help spreading the word with others and maybe pulling more people in to take action. So really just find what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and what we need. And that's where I recommend finding your spot. Also, as we highlighted, working together really increases your impact and can be a lot of fun. So while taking individual action is good, especially when multiple people are taking that action, I really recommend looking at groups and others that are doing action, or look at the communities you're already a part of, like your school, your workplace, your neighborhood, your place of worship. Maybe you're even on a team, and seeing what you guys can do together to reduce waste. And then my last bit is recharge. So we're in this for the long haul. There's a lot to be done, and we're not machines. So make sure you take breaks if you're feeling exhausted or overwhelmed. This is not all on your shoulders. And while you're taking a break, some other people can carry the torch while you rest. Just try to join back in as soon as you're ready, so that you can allow other people to take a break and a breather and relax. Yeah. And then if there's any more questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
we do have a couple questions in the Q&A. So we'll try to get to some of those. We won't be able to answer all of these. There's so many great questions, but let's see what we can. So I think, let's see, an easy one is where can you recycle grocery paper bags?
Paper bags. So paper bags actually should be able to go, one, if you drop off your recycling, you can drop them off with the mixed paper. And then if you have curbside recycling, then it should be able to go in your curbside recycling, just like newspaper and the paper that you write on.
There was another question here that's related to bags and locally. Let's see if I can find it. Sorry, 1 second. I just had it. How can we encourage supermarkets to use compostable bags? Trader Joe's does, but Deerberg's does not.
Yeah, so as you saw, there's a lot of chain businesses that are already working on this. And then locally, I guess, just find the places that you shop and maybe let them know what solutions you're interested in. I actually have a local little market at the end of my street, and I made a comment one time and talked to them about getting rid of receipts. And then like a month later, they got new machines and they chose machines that allowed people to opt out of getting receipts. So you never know, your comment might actually make a difference in their direction moving forward. So just letting businesses and even your elected officials, like your local aldermen and stuff, just know what solutions that you're interested in, the problems that you're concerned about.
Yeah, and that actually answers, I think it answers pretty well the question that was also in the Q&A. How effective is writing companies? Are they listening? Is this socially important enough for them to make the change? And I think from Leslie, what you're saying too is both, you know, reaching out to businesses that you typically frequent, and both, you know, telling them what you want, but also, you know, I think there's a lot to be said for when businesses are doing the right thing to actually come out and say, thank you for doing the right thing. I'm seeing it, and this is why I'm you know, that's why I'm coming to your establishment.
I totally agree.
Yes, praise goes a long way. For those folks.
Absolutely. Let's see. There's a question here about how robust the recycling program is in St. Louis, and that they heard that the recycling pickups are currently suspended due to labor shortages.
Yeah. Oh, I do not have the link pulled up. Maybe someone can pull up the link for that with St. Louis City Recycles.
Yes, I responded to that question with the link to stlcityrecycles.com.
Okay. Yeah, so they are providing updates so that you can just follow updates to see what is the recommended practice at that time, whether you need to be keeping your recyclables or bringing them to a drop-off location, and keep checking for when they are able to start doing curbside recycling again.
Nice. And we actually had, let's see, a few folks mentioned that they use beeswax wraps instead of plastic bags. And someone's question actually was, are they really a better option, I guess, in terms of what it takes to make them and how long they last, etc.
I've heard that they're a good option for, especially for breads and cheeses.
Yeah, I've heard of cheeses.
I've had one, I don't use it too frequently, but I've had it since 2019. So here we are approaching the 3rd year and it hasn't broken down too much. I believe that probably a better option. Another thing that I use for just easy food storage is silicone bags. So they're sand-based and they last a really long time, and they're you can zip them up, and they're heat tolerant too, so you can boil your vegetables in them or put them in the oven.
Nice. Okay, well, let's see. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm trying to see if there are any questions that we haven't really touched on at all. A lot of people are really looking for resources. So I think once we get a good resource list going, that'll kind of help folks kind of go on their own journeys that are as applicable to them, and how and where they're at. Someone did ask if there are resources. So again, resources for organic fabrics instead of plastic and energy intensive fabrics. So I guess really the question is, are some fabrics better than others?
As far as the energy made to make them, so we already talked about how plastic bags use more resources than paper bags. They actually found cotton bags use even more than that. And you have to use a cotton bag, I think, over 137 times. Hopefully you can do that. But you do have the best thing, I guess, is just trying to find things that you already have and trying to use them as much as possible, and in a diverse situation too. So like, I don't have a special knife for cutting each type of different item. I try to have just like multi-purpose items. So one that's good at doing a lot of tasks instead of specialized, and that helps reduce a lot of waste.
And we also had a shout out for TerraCycle, and I'm pretty sure you are familiar. I know you're familiar with TerraCycle, but you've used it. Leslie, Wanda, have you guys both used TerraCycle?
I haven't used it, but I have referred to some people to it. So they can take hard to recycle items, including things like cigarette butts and old razors and some different food pouches, that like single-use food pouches. So it's something that you can look into. I think we might be looking into them for gloves, because some employees have to wear gloves for safety reasons. So we were looking into recycling our rubber gloves. Or
yes, we've done like a pilot program in the past, and kind of saw what worked and what didn't. I will say that you'll realize very quickly how heavy gloves are when you fill up a box of what are they, like not vinyl, but like rubber gloves kind of thing.
Latex.
Latex. Thank you. I'm short on words. And we are actually doing that again in our vet hospital and in a few different areas throughout the zoo, where obviously we just have to use those and cannot get around it. And so we are using TerraCycle for that. And we also, in our education department for camps, I know we've used TerraCycle for a long time for like the little chip bags. Again, another packaging material that is hard to dispose of. So it's certainly a useful program for those kinds of things. And they also, like Leslie said, they have a whole host of products that they accept on their website, including things like pens and a whole list of things. So
It's Frank. We're just still investigating TerraCycle and funding. So from about 4 or 5 different departments at the zoo.
yes.
Hey, Leslie, I had a question.
yes.
If when you go to Deerberg's or Schnucks or any grocery store and you get something from the deli, I know it's against their policy to accept anything that you could put whatever you're purchasing, to bring that in and have them put in there. I'm wondering if there's any type of movement. I don't know if they accept things to place like at Trader Joe's or anywhere else. Do they accept containers to place food from the deli in at Trader Joe's?
As far as I'm aware, if it's for human consumption, they will not take at-home containers
Right.
for putting in the deli.
I wonder if there's any type of movement that could reverse that policy. But
Yeah, I guess we'd have to get some more research on this to address their safety concerns.
Yes. Yep. Okay.
There's several other questions, and I know we're really at time. I do think there's someone who posted about the Facebook group. As an example, there's a group called Buy Nothing. And that's kind of regional. And I just thought that was really important to kind of mention that there are various groups like Free Cycle, Buy Nothing, that really are a fantastic way to reduce the amount of materials that we're using to buy brand new things. So buying used is a big part of the solution. So I really appreciate that comment.
Yes, our Buy Nothing in my community, our Buy Nothing group is extremely popular. I got rid of a ficus in 20 minutes. Like, I mean, it is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
It is great. Yeah, I just got rid of a table recently that I no longer needed, and it's much easier to have someone come pick it up from you too.
Right. And yeah, that's awesome.
Keeping it in use.
Right. All right, everybody. Well, yeah, we are at time. It is 6:33. So unfortunately, we are going to have to close the webinar for today. Before I do that, I put Leslie's email in the chat. Since there were so many questions that went unanswered, Leslie, I didn't ask you ahead of time if that was okay, but I just feel like there were so many good questions that I know you have such amazing insight, and you are such an incredible resource. Just you yourself are an incredible resource. So hopefully folks will be able to reach out to you to get any of those questions that we didn't get to today. And like I said, everybody, keep a lookout for that list of resources. We will get that up with the webinar. We usually get our webinars up the following week. So again, that's stlzoo.org/climate change. So keep an eye for that as well. And I just want to thank Leslie so much for her wonderful presentation. Thank you all for joining us. A fabulous discussion tonight. And everyone, please be on the lookout for more information on next month's Community Climate Forum, all about fostering youth leadership. That will be held on February 10th at 5:30. Leslie, is there anything you want to say before we head out?
I just want to thank everyone for coming and sharing your thoughts and asking questions and getting involved. So happy to be in this work with you, addressing plastic pollution.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Wanda and Frank. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, Leslie. That was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.